Hello everyone, and welcome to this Symmetry presentation to show how you can automate Vault without requiring any coding skills. My name is Graham Harrison and I'm a Principal Consultant with Symmetry. I'm based out of our office in Cambridge in the UK. If you have any questions on today's presentation, please raise them in the chat window and I'll cover them at the end, or you can contact us afterwards. Before I demonstrate anything, let me first set the scene for why we require automation. Most of us would identify data management as being about managing and controlling the files we produce, primarily in our CAD applications, making sure we have the right information and don't lose information because of overwrites, deletes or broken links. It's also about people and collaboration, ensuring the right people have access to the right data. Crucially though, it's also about the process that data goes through. What information needs to be available when in that process and what form that needs to take. All versions of Vault allow us to control our files, but it's Vault Workgroup and Professional that allows to track where files are in their lifecycle and at the same time control who has access to those files and what they can do with them. Vault Lifecycles allow us to map our internal business processes in Vault using the terminology our people understand. As our documents move through these lifecycle stages, other admin tasks also need to be completed. Tasks such as translating to a format suitable for what others need for their process, complying to quality standards by ensuring correct information is completed, or notifying others by email. Vault has the ability to trigger tasks such as these to a queue to then be picked up and processed. The Vault Job Processor has built-in jobs for only a few basic functions, DWF and PDF generation. You are able to add your own completely custom jobs, but you need to have programming skills to create them and knowledge of the Vault API. Even if you have custom jobs created, they will need to be maintained and adjusted as your requirements change. At Symmetry, we recognise this and created Sevilla Vault. Sevilla Vault contains actions for the common activities required, property management, translation, data export, for example, but importantly, gives us the ability to configure options for these in an easy-to-use interface. We can then group these actions together in action sets and determine when these get triggered. We have the option to do this on state change, check-in, add, or even allow them to be manually triggered through the Vault client. So let's see how simple it is to configure Sevilla Vault. Our interface has separate areas for actions and action sets. So let's take an example of creating an action to generate a step file from a part file. So I'll go into the area for my secondary formats, choose on my part option, and I can create a step. So I can choose what I want to call this action so it's easily recognisable. I'm going to export this to file, and that's going to be outside of the Vault. So I'll give it a descriptive name. I can set execution conditions for when this may occur. For example, we may only want this execution condition to occur when the part name or part number contains certain values. So we could put that in as a execution condition. Okay, we then tell it what we want to do with that step file. I'm going to publish this to a folder outside of Vault. Typically that might be a network folder, but in this case I'm just going to point at a folder on my local machine. I can also add some further intelligence to this folder creation. So I could tell it to take the part number and maybe just split it into folders based on the first two characters of the part number. In this particular one, I could publish it back to the Vault. I'll just set this to false. I just want it outside of the Vault for this action. And I can also control the file name. So in this case, I'll set a file name. I don't want the step file to include the extension IPT, but I do want it to include the revision. That's my first action created, fairly simple. This is then saved into a configuration file that's stored in the Vault. Anytime anyone logs in, they get the latest copy of the configuration file. So another action I'm going to create is around updating properties. So when something goes into a release state, I want to update the approver property. And I'll give this a name. I could set an execution condition. And then I can tell it what properties that I want to update. So I want to update the engineer approved by, based on the current user who's going to be pushing this through. And I can take the username and I can pull out initials, first name, last name, etc. So I'll just take the first character, the first name and the full last name. And I can push that up to be uppercase. I'll do the approver. I'll also add in one to update the date in a property for the engineer approved by date. So that, again, is a computed value. I'll take it on the current date. So fairly quickly I can put in actions that will update properties. I've got some in here already that would clear those properties when they went back to a work in progress state, for example. Other formats such as PDF from drawings, from Word files as well. We also have an option to export data. So from the Inventor assembly, I can take out the BOM into a format that's suitable for my ERP system. So I could take that out to a CSV file, SQL, XML. We have other functions as well in the actions area, things like sending mails to notify people on release, and also checking things like property compliance, ensuring that the person who's releasing a document isn't the person who created the document. So those are our actions. So there are the things we want it to do, but we can then also choose when we want it to carry that action out. So if I go up to the action sets area, I'm going to add in a new action set. Okay, I can tell it whether this is allowed to be executed manually or not within the Vault client. This I'll choose as no. I want it to carry out this action set on state change in this particular example. And it could just be, I want it to go carry out this action on any change to a release state. I'll be a bit more specific with it. I'll tell it I want it to look only at the flexible release process lifecycle, coming from any state going to the release state. Again, I can set an execution condition for this whole action set if I want to, and control job queue priority where it sits in the list of jobs in the queue. Okay, so once I've done that, I can then tell it what actions that I want it to run in this action set. Now, those actions can be run on the client directly or can be offloaded to the job processor. So for this particular one, on the client, I want it to carry out a custom action to check that the approver is not the author. And also to update the approver. So in this example, those will run on the client. And I can then also queue actions to run on the job processor. I'll offload the step generation and the email notification, and the job processor will pick those up. So very quickly I can configure a process and how that gets triggered into the system. I'll just apply that. So let's look at how we can make that happen. As I said, it's contained in a configuration file on the Vault. To get the latest update, I just log in and that will automatically pull that down in the background for me. Okay, so let's take a look at the file here, currently work in progress. And we'll take this one through to released. I'll just wait for my bolts just to catch up. It's just temporarily gone to sleep. Okay. So, I do a change state on this. Put it through to released. If I look at the job queue, you'll see that's pushed now some functions out to the job queue. I take a look at this one, for example, and try and do the same. Change state, move it through to released, and this one errors because I'm the author. I can't release my own files. We can also trigger functions manually if we've configured that. So if I go to this, we have a Savidia Vault menu in here. I have an action to say export bomb, which will send that off to the job processor. It will be sitting and running. So the job processor will check for jobs every minute I've got it set up on mine. You can see in the background that's just going to go off and process those. If I look in that export folder, you see my step file has been automatically generated. We could control the name, so you see it's taken the first two characters of the name and it's appended the revision onto that. So processing that, that's open in Vault in the background, and that's going to process those. And there's our generated CSV file. Out from there, if I look in my email, you'll see it's generated an email, another one in here. So we can format this email in any format that we want. It's just an HTML file, pull through property information. And take us to a link in the Vault. So just a small introduction there to some of the actions available. We can use the Savidia Vault as an automation platform that we can easily configure to perform the actions required when they need to be triggered and all without having to produce any code, which means that we can easily modify and adjust them to suit in the future as our requirements change. Sevelia Vault is a client-side add-on to Vault Workgroup, Professional and Office clients, and works with the Vault files, CAD and non-CAD, and also Vault items. So just looking at any questions that have been raised. Okay, as far as pricing, it's priced per client, and it does depend on the number of clients that you have. So the more clients that you have, the price comes down. Okay, so if you want to find out any more information on Sevelia Vault, go to the Sevelia.com website, and Sevelia Vault is just one in a range of Sevelia products. You can find information on all the products there on the Sevelia.com website, and you can also contact us from there for any further information. Thank you for your time.